So Blizzard have gone and done it. They're launching their very own private server. Well, what does that even mean? So in case you didn't know, yesterday in the afternoon a survey went out to a select few about whether we'd want Classic Fresh or not. Now it's specifically focusing on Classic Era realms, and this is why. Oh look, you can just clone your character. This is cool. Yes, I can get my Druid back. All you've got to do is just type your name in. Boom. Connecting to shop. What? Why is it connecting me to the shop? It's got to be free, isn't it? Surely it's just a cloning my character so I can carry on playing on the dead Classic Era realms. This will only take a moment. Oh, you just have to press OK and then it's free, obviously. 12 quid? No. I'll just create a level 1. Oh, that's 3 people. 3 people on Classic Era realms in Elwyn Forest. How many we got in Stormwind? Oh. Oh. Busy. Busy server, boys. This is a busy server. Oh, I'm dead. I'm going back on TBC. I mean, when you look, there's no one on Classic Era realms. I think the general, they probably had numbers in mind of how much of a percentage of the player base they probably expected to use the character cloning tool, and I genuinely feel that they probably got nowhere near what they was expecting, because I just don't think that many people bothered. Now they've got dead realms and they've got the resources there to actually have these realms populated, so they're obviously looking at a way to maybe draw in people who haven't played before and maybe entice people back onto these Classic Era realms. And the only way they are going to do that is with a fresh restart anyway, because who wants to just sit in phase 6 for the rest of their life? You know, it's not that entertaining. So let's have a little look at this survey. So right at the beginning I said, look, they're making their own private server, and that I genuinely meant, because the things that they're doing here are what private servers have been doing for years. So if the Classic Fresh Start realms were introduced, how likely or unlikely are you to start playing on a Classic Fresh Start realm if the changes you liked were implemented? And then there's some of the changes, and then obviously we're going from very unlikely to very likely, and then obviously options in between. So summoning stones at dungeon entrances. Now let's face it, that should have really been in from the start. You know, they're there, they're just purely cosmetic in vanilla, but with the hashtag some changes, you know, mentality, I think they could activate them now. You know, no need to wait for a fresh restart or anything like that. They should just be working on Classic, full stop, in my opinion. More difficult raid bosses and dungeon encounters. So again, something that's quite common among the private servers and private server scene in general is tuning and making bosses more difficult, making you know, dungeons, heroics, things like that. I know there's no heroics in Classic, but you know what I mean. Just making content in general a little bit more difficult. So I'd imagine that'd be a welcome change and would probably add a little bit more spice to the Classic scene as well. You know, if you knew you was going to be getting a tuned version of Molten Core, you might even be tempted to level up to 60. I probably would, if I'm honest with you, if the raiding was, you know, they tuned it to make it quite difficult. Even I would be interested, to be fair, and I'm not that interested in Classic at all. Increased debuff limit on raid bosses. I mean, that's a good one, because that would now allow certain specs to become more viable, or maybe just more useful, you know, so you can have warlocks using more dots, you'll be able to have your hunters using serpent sting, you'll be able to have your, you know, boomies even keeping their moonfire up, and ferals keeping their bleeds up. You know, it would just make it probably a more enjoyable raiding experience with the debuff limit raised. It would have to be raised quite a lot, because, you know, even with it being 40 in 25 man, having it 40 in 40 man wouldn't be ideal. So, you know, they'd still need to maybe have a look at raising that to 60 or something like that. They'd have to think about it, but I could see that being quite cool. So faster XP rates to level. Now, again, you know, the most boring thing for me in Classic, whereas some people find it the most enjoyable thing, but for me, one of the most boring things is the leveling. I just want to get to 60, start gearing, start raiding, you know, and all the good stuff at max level. I'm not really bothered about that journey in between, where I know a lot of you are, and, you know, I really appreciate that you like the leveling. I don't, you know, I've done it quite a lot. I've done it many times, to the point where I just can't be bothered with it. I'm struggling to level my rogue on TBC at the moment, even though that's what I'm going to be doing all weekend, but purely just because it's like the same old quest. You know, I've done them loads of times. I'm going to try and spend some time in dungeons, to be fair, but I think faster XP rates would be welcomed, or it would be welcomed by me. So no world buffs in raids. I mean, yeah, no world buffs in raids, I get that. You know, I think having world buffs in raids would be fine, but having the Chrono Boom Displacer or whatever it's called, having that in from the start would be important. I personally would rather have world buffs, and I never thought I'd say this in a million years. I would rather have world buffs but with the Chrono Boom Displacer, rather than flat out not having world buffs in raids. But, saying that, obviously the sort of for the competitiveness, so removing world buffs and increasing difficulty in raids, it probably would make the raiding a lot more entertaining, you know, without the option of world buffs. So I totally get both ways. The only thing I sort of like with world buffs and the Chrono Boom Displacer is, as much of a pain as raid logging was with world buffs, once you've got that Chrono Boom, it just gives you something to do. You know, it gives you a reason to go all the way over to DM North. It gives you, you know, a reason to sort of check timers and go to Stormwind at the right time, then go over to STV. I know some people look at it as a chore, and it is a chore, and it was a big chore when you had to log out. But when you can store them all, I don't see it as much of a chore, and I personally, I wouldn't be against the, you know, world buffs being in, but as long as the displacer was there. Now, I'm about to fire the stream up over on twitch.tv/Scottejaye87, so come check me out, because I'll be live pretty much all weekend, hopefully, because I'm starting a subathon. So do come over and check me out. I was going to be streaming it on YouTube as well, but I've decided against it, and I'm going to start streaming on YouTube in July. And then next, let's talk about the speed. So they're talking about the cadence, or the speed of release of content, basically. So if we have a look, so for WoW Classic Fresh Start Realms, we're considering accelerating the cadence of new phase releases and making some changes to allow players to keep up. With which cadence would you prefer most for a WoW Classic Fresh Start Realm? So same WoW Classic as August 2019, so, you know, nearly 2 years. Accelerated 12 months with a new Fresh Start Realm restarted every 12 months. Now, I did say, you know, it was either in a podcast or a video quite a while ago, 6 to 8 months ago, I would guess, that I would really like a roll-in 3 expansion 12-month cycle. So, vanilla for 12 months, and then it moves on to TBC for 12 months, then RAF for 12 months. Then it resets. You've got the option to stay on any of them post that 12 months, you know, a little bit like the classic era, but, you know, you'll understand that realm will probably either be dead or slowly die. But, you know, I quite like the 12-month cycle of content. I think 2 years of content, especially with how Blizzard tend to drag it out, you know, I'd prefer 12 months. The next option is accelerated 6 months. I think 6 months is not long enough. I think that's far too short. You know, I like quick content, but I think 6 months for me, personally, that wouldn't be great. I would much prefer 12 months. But even if it was 2 years, I can live with the 21 to 22 months. I can live with that. But I would prefer somewhere between the 12 months and maybe between 12 months and 21 to 22 months. You know, so maybe like a year and a half. You know, just like 18 months. That might be sort of the sweet spot for most people. Obviously, let me know in the comments, you know, what you think to all of this anyway, and what you would prefer. So the next one is pretty much the same as before, so I'm only going to mention the bits that have changed. So we've got faster XP rates we know about, barbershop. No world buffs, increased debuff limit, black market auction house for vanity items. It's not retail, mate. Original Alterac Valley design, more guards, slower matches, additional quests. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind the old school AV, to be honest with you. I remember AV being up for multiple days, you know, like one game could be going for a couple of days. That's quite cool. I mean, does make getting honour a bit more difficult, you know, ranking a bit more difficult, because then it's going to shift the meta to Warsong Gulch, which I would actually like. You know, if the meta shifted from AV to WSG, I'd be on board with that. So not a change I would be bothered about either way, if I'm honest. More difficult raid bosses we've already spoke about. Increased rate of item drops. That's another classic private server thing. Yeah, because if you're getting quicker levels because of increased XP rate, you need items to drop more so you can keep your player power relative to the quests that you're actually completing out in the world. So you need, if you're going to have faster XP, you need increased item drops. Simple as that. Earn gold at faster rates. I've never got any gold, so it doesn't matter. And summoning stones at dungeon entrances, we've spoke about. So that's the entire survey. I mean, you know, overall, I think having a classic fresh restart would be good. If I could choose between classic and TBC, I'd still choose TBC, and I'd take a TBC fresh launch any day of the week. If they wanted to relaunch TBC already, I'd roll on that server, and most of our guild probably would as well. So, you know, a classic TBC launch for me would be great if they was maybe to tie both in. They've done a classic vanilla, you know, classic era realm refresh, whatever they want to call it, fresh start, and one TBC realm on each region or something like that at the same time. I'd be all over that, Blizz. So anyway, if you like this, like, subscribe. It helps more than you know. So please smash that like button and take it easy. I'll see you on the next one. Just wanted to take this moment just to say thank you to all those guys up there that have joined the channel as a member, so that's as a supporter or as a legendary supporter. It really does help the channel just continue growing, keep me in this seat, pumping out TBC content, Ashes of Creation soon, and obviously whatever else comes up between now and then. Also, if you want to give me some extra support, then check out my second channel, Safe Sounds, which is DMCA free, copyright free music for content creators, so be that Twitch streamers, TikTok creators, YouTube content creators, anything, anywhere you need background music, copyright free, lo-fi, drill, R&B, hip hop, you name it, it's going to be on there. So if you want to check that out, links in the description below. Please go over and subscribe, it really helps out. And thank you again, all you guys up there and everybody that subscribes to the channel. Peace out.